right, everyone. Let's talk about recognizing red flags and moving forward. We've all been there, right? You meet someone, or maybe it's a job or some situation, and you feel that initial spark. Everything feels great, and in the beginning, you're just riding that wave. You're all in. But deep down, there are those little signs. You know what I mean? Those traces, those gut feelings that something's not quite right. Maybe it's a red flag or something small, but you ignore it because, well, you're invested. You want it to work. We do this all the time, whether it's in relationships, work, or other parts of life. You tell yourself, it's nothing, or I'll deal with it later. And then fast forward, you realize those red flags, yeah, they didn't go away. They come back, and they come back to hurt you. The traces were always there, isn't it? Exactly. The traces were always there. Let me guess. You've probably replayed moments in your head, thinking, I should have seen this coming. The reality. You did see it coming. You saw those little cracks. Maybe they weren't being honest, or the job wasn't as great as it seemed. But at the time, you were wrapped up in your feelings. Whether it was love, hope, or even fear of being alone, you brushed it aside. We all do. We want so badly for it to work that we overlook what's right in front of us. But here's the thing. You can't ignore those signs and expect everything to just magically change. They don't disappear because you pretend they're not there. In fact, they get louder, clearer, until you can't ignore them anymore. Is that the moment when it hits you? Yeah, and that's where it hits hardest. Think about it. How many times have you noticed something wasn't quite right, but you pushed it aside? You hoped it was just a phase. That's when we end up getting hurt. But honestly, don't beat yourself up over it. It's human. We all do it because we want to see the best in people or situations. But once you've realized it, that's when the real work begins. Learning from it and moving forward is not just about seeing the red flags. It's about acknowledging them. You might feel regret now, like you should have acted sooner. But instead of dwelling on what could have been, focus on what you can do now. The hardest part is admitting that you saw those signs and chose to ignore them. But that's okay, because once you admit it, you can take steps forward. So, what comes after recognizing those signs? Well, the next step is to make sure you don't repeat the same mistakes. You can't rewrite the past, but you can sure as hell make sure you don't go down that road again. Will Smith once said something like, the first step is saying you can. After his marriage went through tough times, he admitted that the signs were always there, but he had to face them head on to rebuild. That's the key. Honesty with yourself and the situation. And it's never too late to make a change. Sometimes you don't see it until it's too late. That's okay. That happens too, and that's okay. Sometimes you don't see it until everything crumbles around you. But here's the good part. Life is always teaching us lessons, even if we didn't ask for them. When something feels off, trust your gut. Don't wait for everything to fall apart. The next time something doesn't sit right, don't wait for the cracks to show. Act on your instincts. Tyler Perry is a great example. He talked about how he struggled early on in life, putting his energy into things that drained him. It wasn't until he hit rock bottom that he realized he was standing in rubble. But instead of staying there, he rebuilt, piece by piece. That's what it's about. Recognizing the lesson in the rubble and choosing to build again. So, where does this leave you? You've been through the ringer, you've ignored the red flags, and now you're picking up the pieces. That's where the real growth happens. Now you know how important it is to acknowledge the signs when you see them. But more than that, you need to take action when those signs show up again. Stop holding on to what's no longer serving you. You know the signs now. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Move forward with the lesson, not the baggage. You don't have to carry the past with you, but you can carry the lessons. You're not supposed to stay in the same place that broke you. Your next step is to leave and never look back. You've learned, you've grown, and now it's time to let go of what hurt you and move toward what's meant for you. You deserve better than staying in a place that made you question your worth. The place you lost your smile is not where you'll find it again. It's easy to fall into the habit of thinking that happiness is tied to a particular place, person, or time in your life. But often that's not the case. True happiness is found in places that allow you to grow, not in places that made you fade. Look at Michelle Obama. Throughout her life, she faced numerous setbacks and challenges, both personal and professional. From adjusting to life as the first African-American First Lady to navigating harsh criticism, Michelle never sought happiness by looking backward. She found peace and fulfillment by focusing on the future, by advocating for education, health, and empowerment. She thrived by finding her joy in places that allowed her to grow and leave a positive impact on the world. Let me remind you, when you turn the page, the story only gets better. Life has a way of surprising us when we're ready to let go and move on. The best part of your journey still ahead of you. Every closed chapter has taught you something, but it's not the end of the book. You've learned, you've grown, and now it's time to write the next part of your story. Finally, I want you to remember this. Close the door on past pain so new joy can enter. Now look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I going to keep ignoring the signs? Or am I ready to face the truth, take control, and move forward into something that brings me real peace? Remember, you have the power to choose a better path. The red flags were there, but now you see them, and now you can act on them.